I am glad I got a 64 gigabyte micro SD card so I can record a bunch of videos on end, so I don't really have to do phone dumps anymore. All I have to do is just make sure my phone's charging. That's not a problem. I got my external battery charger. I remember growing up, well, I don't know about Chinese kids, but maybe many Viet kids can relate. Like, your family probably watched these historical dramas called Phim Bo, like at your home, and people would dress all like elegantly, and there would be fight scenes. I remember one I watched growing up with my parents. Like, they would actually sit us down to watch it because I guess it was nostalgia on their part, and for us it was a way to learn Vietnamese and maybe connect or relate with our parents to that level. Of course, there was some mature scenes or topics, and of course I didn't understand all the dialogue and entire storyline. I had to research some of it or look it up on Wikipedia later, but it was still a good bonding experience because it was timeless for them, for my parents at the time. The series we watched was it started as a series of books by this guy named Jin Yang, or as in Vietnamese his name was Kim Yung, and he wrote like a whole bunch of series like Thiên Long Bát Bộ, Anh Hùng Xà Điêu, Thần Điêu Đại Hiệp, and probably a whole bunch of other books or series I don't know about. But yeah, this was translated into a historical drama or Phim Bo. My parents would have us sit down and watch it. At first I was kind of hesitant to do so. We're like, oh, it's a Saturday night, it's a Friday night. We can watch it on some weekday nights too. But hey, it was an educational experience. You get to, and of course it helped me learn some Vietnamese, I suppose. And it was still, and the storylines were captivating, though confusing, I admit. It took me a while to understand it. I had to research it on Wikipedia later. And of course, there's like a dude, he reads some scrolls, he gets some special powers, like he points with his finger and then some beams come out, he can run really fast, and he travels different lands, meets different people, makes lifelong friends, falls in love with different chicks. Then he finds out he can't be with the chicks because his dad's got with most of the chicks' mothers, so they are all really his sisters, which is kind of sad. But hey, you can watch it to find out. We watched the 1984 TVB Hong Kong versions, and there have been many remakes of that series. Like, there was one in the early 2000s, and it had more animation, and I admit better looking actors and actresses. So I gave that series a try. I even downloaded it. But one thing I don't like about it was that they reviewed like a big plot point as the first scene of the series. You know? I mean, of course you want to build up on that much later, but that kind of defeats the purpose. That's like spoiling the series itself with its own spoiler. So yeah, like I was saying, that series was probably timeless for them. Oh, we grew up reading the books, we grew up watching the shows and renting the VHS tapes and watching it. And honestly, we only got our hands on those DVDs because, I think we borrowed it from someone, or we burned the DVDs from someone else. But yeah, like, timeless is different generations. Like, my parents like all these timeless Vietnamese singers and those sometimes show up on the music variety shows like Asia and Paris by Night. Of course, these singers are past their prime, but it's fine because they can sing their iconic songs, and they have their iconic voices and image. Yeah, sometimes you have to distinguish between timeless and nostalgia. Like, I guess Whitney Houston was timeless, Prince is timeless, Michael Jackson's timeless. Elvis, timeless. Beatles, I mentioned before. And bands like Peter, Paul, and Mary, and The Carpenter. Honestly, I'm just listing names. I listen to some of their music, but I don't know 100% sure if they are timeless or not. Versus nostalgia. Like, for example, my anecdote. The first season of Digimon. Yeah. I was like, oh my god, it's just a Pokemon knockoff. But hey, it was pretty interesting. Like, kids around my age at the time go to a world and meet monsters that digivolve into bigger monsters, and they fight and protect and bond with those kids. And even as for English dub, it was well written, it was meaningful. It makes the kids wish, oh boy, I wish that was me. Well, for me anyways, I don't know about other people. And of course, season 2 was pretty decent. When after that, Digimon got very confusing. I don't follow it anymore. Yeah, and the thing about those things you grew up with, is they stick with you. You remember them. Like, I remember what Pokemon or Digimon evolves or Digivolves into what. I remember the characters and names and all the cities and the names of the badges and the names of the bad guys, the evil Digimon, the protagonists, the gym leaders. Honestly, there's so much of this junk in your head that sometimes you need to be rid of it. Maybe that's why my parents didn't want me watching so many of these cartoons growing up. Not that because they're bad, but because they're not very practical or applicable. Like, I'm not gonna use the fact that Bulbasaur evolves at level 16 and learns Vine Whip at 14 and Razor Leaf at level 25 now in my life or something, you know? Actually, I don't even know if that's true, because there's been 6-7 different generations and reiterations of Pokemon. And also Yu-Gi-Oh! Of course, things start off as, you think it's some kind of knockoff until you give it a chance. I was like, oh, an anime with cards. It's probably like Cardcaptor Sakura. And boy, was it different. Yeah, and then you remember all these duelists and the effects of each card, the names of each card. Honestly, these things, after a while, you gotta wise up. It's not that you get bored of it, but you gotta wise up and realize, I shouldn't follow this anymore. It's not really applicable to my life at the moment. It's time to move on. Not necessarily grow up. I mean, you can, I don't know, I've seen grown-ups like follow, keep track of all this stuff, all different new cards. I don't even know what a pendulum summon is. And yeah, sometimes I check out Bulbapedia just to see, what's new in the Pokemon world? And there is like 700, 800 of them now. And of course they get uglier and uglier with weird names, and there's like 50 legendary Pokemon, which defeats the purpose of being called legendary. I guess that's kind of a mix of nostalgia and timelessness. Another one that I can't really distinguish was Gem and the Holograms. Of course, I did not grow up watching Gem and the Holograms because, one, it was not meant for my demographic, Asian males. And two, it was not even in my decade. It was an 80s cartoon. But hey, I found it out like years later. Watched the entire series, though I skipped some episodes and most of the singing parts. But the plot was good. The characters were good. I can see why people grow up appreciating this series. I even got me a Gem and the Hologram shirt. Yeah, I admit it. I'm not ashamed of it. And then I found out they made a movie. And of course, whenever someone's making a movie based on something in the past, whether it's like a TV show or a book, like into a different medium, to be re-updated for the kids or for the future generation, for the new audience, the first thing that comes to mind is, don't mess this up, don't mess this up. You pray to God, don't mess this up, don't ruin the image that I had as a kid. Don't ruin that impression. And then sometimes it delivers, sometimes it's completely different, but it's not bad. Well, I didn't grow up with Ninja Turtles, but in the new one, they came from space or something? I'm not sure. And the turtles look pretty ugly. Yeah, but in the new Gem and the Holograms, of course, they took out many aspects. Like, oh, she's not like a CEO of her own record label. Or there's no special earrings that give her special clothes and special effects. Like, Synergy is just some little app that rolls around, and she's like discovered as a YouTube star. Like the real Gem and the Holograms was very empowering. She ran her own orphanage and overcame real differences. Like, and they just cheapened it, bastardized it into something easy, and they make a forgettable film that was pulled within like a week of being in theaters because it was heavily panned by critics and barely made any money. Though it serves them right. But now that series will be tainted by that movie too. I mean, yeah, it's an iconic cartoon and songs and whatnot, but now it's tainted with that movie. Some things are too big to be tainted, like the Super Mario. And of course, they made that bad movie. I tried watching like 15 minutes of it. I was like, oh my god, this is not even related to Mario whatsoever. Just some couple names. But hey, it survived that because Mario is big. Mario stayed big. Mario was consistent. Gem and the Holograms, it was just like a cartoon in the 80s, and then no one remembered it until they made a movie maybe 25 years later. So, okay, so long story short, anything from the past, any art form, media form, cultural icon, pop culture icon, can bring nostalgia, but only time will tell if it'll be timeless. Hence the word timeless, I suppose. And like I said, what makes something timeless? Is it, well, it has to withstand the test of time. It could be like a piece of cultural history, or it could be like a very small footnote afterthought. Like, no matter how big something may blow up now, like, I remember Gangnam Style took over the world, or Carly Rae Jepsen's Call Me Maybe, that was pretty popular for a while. Or even Soulja Boy's like Goofy Dance, that does take real choreography and some practice. Honestly, they were forgotten, not really forgotten, but nowhere as relevant 5 years later. And that's expected. Because some things are fads, some things are crazes. And other things withstand the test of time. And it's not me who decides it, it's not me who judges it, it's, I guess, people, history itself that decide what is worth being remembered.